Good morning and welcome to the Daily Cyber Briefing for Wednesday, the 22nd of January. I'm Stephen Ridgway. Came across a wonderful phrase in the Register, in an article in the Register this morning, which I will undoubtedly use and plagiarise going forward. So well done to the Register for coming up with this one. Patch Procrastination leaves 50,000 Fortinet firewalls vulnerable to 0-day. So we talked about this. I think was it last week? Was it earlier this week or last week or whenever? But relatively recently. Yeah, it must have been last week. CVE 2024 55591. There are still, well, not quite 50,000. According to the article, 48,457 Fortinet boxes exactly are publicly exposed and haven't been patched. So what I would say is don't be a patch procrastinator. Get on with it. These things, they're sat out there. They are vulnerable. It is time to bring forward patching for that if you haven't done so already. Otherwise, expect your device to be compromised. I think that on the day that the vulnerability was made public, there were only 52,000 instances that were publicly available anyway, which means not a lot of work appears to have been done in order to address this. Now, if you listen to the podcast regularly, you'll know my opinion on these things. Regular patching is much better than sporadic or prolonged patch intervals. If you patch regularly and something goes wrong, which it will, but relatively rarely these days, you'll know immediately what the issue was. So my view, and has been for 15 years, is not quite patch and be damned, but just do some stand-up testing and then get on with it. Because even 15 years ago, the time between a vulnerability being discovered and an exploit being created was days stroke weeks. It is now much shorter. So I think there's very little excuse these days for not getting on with patching. Yes, I appreciate if it's an edge device, there's connectivity going through it, you're going to have to negotiate downtime. But believe me, you're going to have unnegotiated downtime if somebody takes control of the device and does something with it. So it's the lesser of two evils. So there we are. Patch procrastination is, I think, my favourite phrase at the moment. Right, a quick warning to Mac users. Google Ads is being used to spread a fake homebrew website with the intention of infecting Mac and Linux devices with an info stealer. Homebrew, for those who don't know, I'm sure most people using Macs have heard of it. If you don't quite know what it is an open source package manager for Macs, and also works with Linux and presumably BSD as well. I'm not sure, never used it on BSD. There are times when the official App Store doesn't have the thing that you are really keen on installing, but you can get a precompiled working version from Homebrew. So I tend to find Homebrew on not your average user, but either the more tech savvy end, or also I've seen the more sort of gamer end of the consumer market wanting to install things that the App Store isn't providing. Um, be aware it does make changes to some of the permissions and rights and so on your Mac, and it does introduce some weaknesses into the. It removes some of the protections that Apple have built into Macs, which are pretty good protections overall. Not perfect by a long way, but they are pretty good. Um, Stuff like only installing signed software and so on, bits and pieces. Well, some of those things do get changed as a consequence of using Homebrew. So you're already into slightly less secure territory if you're using it. However, if you are going to use it, as always, firstly, make sure that anything you install from it, you're confident is safe, because it has not been through the stuff that's available through Homebrew has not been through the same level of security testing that Apple apply if you're downloading stuff from the App Store. And secondly, if you download a dodgy version of Homebrew, game over. Kind of game over. It doesn't really matter what you try to install through that. Your machine has been owned. So, interesting article. If you're a Mac user and you're interested, or you are using Homebrew, I recommend you take a quick look at this article and have a think about how you ensure that anything you download outside of your device manufacturer or your main vendor's official app environment, how you make sure that stuff is actually safe. Don't trust things that you see in Google Ads is a very good it's a very good sort of working methodology. Google Ads, there have been arguments around whether Google actually cares, whether it's advertising malware or not. I think they do, because it reflects on their reputation. I also think that because of the absolute millions, if not billions, of adverts that are served every day, stuff gets through because it's a monumental task to keep on top of it. And perhaps they could do a better job, one could argue that, but it is what it is. So just be careful. If you see something in a Google ad that you like the look of, don't click on the ad to go to it. Browse for the site. Browse to the site directly, using all your normal controls in order to make sure that you are actually ending up with what you think you're ending up with. Okay, then finally from me today, in the category of watch this space, it may have, you may not have noticed, but Donald Trump was inaugurated yesterday. Was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. It feels like a lot longer ago. Into being he's now the second. It's the second. Oh dear, I'm stumbling over my words trying to get all this stuff out. Right, so we now have another President Trump, the same as the last President Trump, only bigger and better and doing more stuff. And some of the stuff that he's done on his first day is he's sacked a load of people. Well, I'm not saying you heard that first here. That's been coming for a long time. However, from our perspective, within the cyber and infosec industry, just be aware of the fact that some of the people who are now no longer working for some very well-known agencies that some of us take advice from and listen to, some of those people are not there anymore. In his first day, Trump has axed all advisory committee members within the Department of Homeland Security, including people that make up the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. That's CISA, who I'm sure you're aware I have a lot of time for. So they've got rid of the Cyber Safety Review Board, CSRB. So the CSRB, for example, was actively working. investigating Salt Typhoon, the Chinese state-sponsored hacking group that was responsible for the telecommunications network breaches over the last few months, as an example. The article in Dark Reading describes it as dismissed members of the CSRB include a who's who of cybersecurity from companies such as Sentinel One and blah blah blah. So yeah, right now there's a bit of a gap, it appears. Will this matter? Time will tell, but the reasoning behind this is around what's been described as reducing the misuse of resources, i.e., money saving, but also I think we're looking at the very rapid dismantling of anything which Biden put in place over the last 4 years. I don't expect much of that to survive, certainly not in its current state. I think there's going to be a significant purge, and I think that cybersecurity and information security will be swept up in that purge. What's going to happen afterwards, we don't know yet. There's no indication whether some of these committees will be reinstated with different membership or will just disappear. Bearing in mind, CSRB was created in 2021 by executive order. The intention, from what we can see, is that future committee activities will be focused solely on advancing a critical mission to protect Homeland, as in US Homeland, and supports Department of Homeland Security's strategic priorities. So I suspect there will be something coming back in some form or another that will fill this particular gap. In the meantime, if you are reliant on information coming out of CISA, just be aware that these changes have happened, and that at the moment the CISA may have less access to almost distinguished advisors whilst the stuff gets sorted out. So one to keep an eye on and see where things go. Right, that's all from me for the moment. I hope you have a good Wednesday, and I will see you all again. Speak to you even.